This segment is the Commissioner of Agriculture in the states of West Virginia, Kent Leonhardt. Kent, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Rob and gentlemen. How are you all doing today?
Good. Excellent, thank you. We have a question for you about eggs set up from a previous discussion earlier this morning with our Matt Miller, who has a couple of pigs on his property. And I'm not talking about his children, but I'm talking about actual pigs. We asked him if he was going to get chickens, and he said, no, too much work. You go on vacation, someone's going to pick up the eggs and whatever. So that leads to this question from Jonathan Bodwell.
Why do the eggs have to be picked up every day, Kent? Why, they can't sit there? Chickens get antsy if there's an extra egg. How does that work?
Well, if you pick them up, then they don't get as broody and they lay more. That's number one. The other side of it is that you don't want them to spoil, particularly if it's in the freezing weather. You don't want the egg to freeze while the chicken's not on it before you bring it into your house, and you don't want it to get in the hot weather. You don't want it to get cold. Hot and spoil. So you just get in the habit of picking them up every day.
That answer your question well enough?
That answers my question.
All right.
Thank you. Because it didn't make any sense to me, but that makes perfect sense.
So
well, you're quite welcome, gentlemen.
Let's stay on chickens.
Be educated other folks out there.
Hey, we're just trying to spread it. And you can interpret that any way you want.
That's right. That's part of the Department of Ag's role is to educate.
That's what we're doing. I heard a case in the news this morning of bird flu spreading to a sheep. Now, Kent, this is I think the first case of that they've uncovered. Let's talk about bird flu in West Virginia. Does it exist? Have we had to do anything with chicken farmers in the state in regards to destroying any of the flocks?
Well, we've had 2 backyard flocks, one last year and one January this year. And we were able to contain the disease. We are one of 2 states without any avian influenza in the commercial flocks, Louisiana and West Virginia. And the waterfowl is what's spreading, the primary spreader of this. And we've had a number of cases of waterfowl that's been found dead and tested to have the avian influenza. We at the Department of Agriculture have been working very closely with all our growers, our poultry growers, whether they're a small backyard flock or a commercial. We work very hard on educating, again, on biosecurity to make sure that if the disease is around, it doesn't spread from one to the other. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we may get hit again. But we are more in the broiler business in our commercial than we are in the egg-laying business. So the egg layers, those birds tend to live a lot longer, and just by the nature of the way the industry works, and they're more susceptible to getting avian influenza, whereas a broiler is only there, a couple months, and they're going into processing. So the risk of infection is lower per the flock. So it's a very deadly disease. It's never lasted this long. It usually comes, hits a house or two, and goes away. But we've been actually dealing with it for 3 years now. So I've got to give my staff credit. They've done hundreds of thousands of tests. If anybody has a backyard flock, they suspect they might have some illness, please contact the Department of Agriculture. We'll talk to you over the phone, and if necessary, we'll come out and take samples and test.
What would be some symptoms that would clue you in that the bird isn't healthy?
Well, simple symptoms. Well, first off, you have to find a bird that passes away, that dies, find a dead bird, and the other birds are kind of listless. They're off their feed. They're not drinking water. Those type of, or they've got some discharge from the nostrils on the beak, or watery eyes. Any of those type of symptoms, please get hold of us.
Why is this such a problem the last 3 years and won't go away? Kent, any clue?
Because it's more in the waterfowl, and the waterfowl are migrating in the fall and in the spring. You probably heard that I put poultry shows on hold. We're going to reevaluate later in April after the spring migration is passed, or the waterfowl, whether we're going to open up poultry shows again or not.
I was just going to ask if there was a concern with how the waterfowl move, if there's a greater concern in the next couple of weeks or months as they come back into our area.
Yeah, that's exactly why I put the haul up on poultry shows and swap meets for poultry because of that migration. We're in the height of the migration of the waterfowl right now.
So once those waterfowl return and kind of settle, is it then something that should kind of take care of itself, that those that may be infected will ultimately either perish or get better?
Well, most likely they're going to perish if they've been infected.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot of faith in them not perishing. I mean, getting better. You know, larger animals, cows and humans, and hopefully the sheep, they all recover. But it's always a toll taken anytime an animal or a human gets sick. You know, we always have a little bit of spunk taken out of us. But we need to continue vigilance. And like I said, we're going to reevaluate whether we're going to do poultry shows or not sometime in April after the flyway's through, and we'll see how we do. Because we work very closely with Wildlife Services, U.S. Wildlife Services in DNR. If there's a waterfowl that's found dead in the wild and it gets tested, we're talking back and forth.
What is the biggest danger to humans from the avian influenza?
Just almost like a flu symptoms for the humans. There's been, close to 100, I guess, now, human infections, and those are coming from people that have worked very closely with either sick birds or sick dairy cows. And then there's been one death, but that individual had other health issues that coincided at the same time.
Jonathan Bodwell.
So is this bird flu, you were saying you're surprised when they get better. I mean, is this almost always deadly for the birds?
It's almost always deadly for the birds, yes.
Is it very, I mean, I guess it spreads like wildfire. If it gets into a chicken coop,
very fast.
Everybody's going to get it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a matter of days in a commercial poultry flock.
Because there have been millions and millions of birds that have been euthanized to try to cut this out, I believe.
Yes, there has been. And most of those in recent, this year have been the egg layers, which is why the egg prices went so high.
Yeah, I saw $8-9 for 12 eggs. I remember when I was just starting off, just getting out of school, I mean, the egg Sani was the go-to meal if you didn't have any money.
Right.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. It's coming down. We're importing more eggs right now. USDA's been doing that. Part of the other plan that USDA is working on is helping with the biosecurity in commercial flocks. So those flocks that are most vulnerable, closest to, they're getting a little bit more attention, but our producers are eligible for that kind of assistance as well. And if anybody is listening that wants that kind of assistance, please get hold of the Department of Agriculture and we'll help them coordinate it.
Kent, you mentioned the importing of eggs. Has this been an issue in other parts around the world, or is it mostly an issue right now within the U.S.?
Well, right now it's a focus on the U.S. because it's obviously it's a public concern, and the public is concerned about the price of eggs, and our federal government's doing what they can to try to meet that need. I can't speak for what Europe's doing.
Are there other things that you are really worried about right now, disease-wise or otherwise, with our agriculture as we head into spring and summer?
Well, we're obviously always worried about foreign animal disease, which is why when I took office and we hired a new state veterinarian, I found somebody that was very experienced in emergency action planning, and his first task was to revamp all our emergency action plans, and we've done that. I think West Virginia's in great shape to meet any foreign animal diseases that come along. I mean, there's always going to be, you can't stop everything. It's sort of like terrorism. Law enforcement has to be right 100% of the time. The terrorist only has to be right once. It's the same way with animal diseases. You know, you can be right. You got to be right 100% of the time, and that never always happens. something's going to leak through. But we've been very good in training in biosecurity. We've exercised our foreign animal disease programs. We've brought in our USDA partners, our surrounding states, and we've been recognized at national meetings for the work that we're doing and getting prepared and the exercises that we're doing. I've even had commissioners from other states at meetings say we need to do more exercising like West Virginia's doing. So I'm very proud of our staff again for the work they're doing, and we're in exceptionally good shape should a foreign animal disease. There's African swine fever that everybody's worried about. It's in the Dominican Republic area in the Caribbean now. Hasn't hit the U.S., but everybody's very vigilant on that because it hurt China really bad a few years back. We're always concerned about hoof and mouth disease if that comes out of areas where it's been known to have. So there's a lot of inspections that are done. A lot of things are done to try to prevent any entry of foreign animal diseases. But if they're there, we need to be prepared.
Hoof and mouth disease, Kent. What animals are affected by that, and what are the effects?
The primary one is the cattle. And, again, it's another very fast-spreading disease, and the animals perish. And it's one that we don't want here in West Virginia.
I've got to ask, it's not something that I ever think much about. You think of the cattle in our area and where they may come from other local farmers or states away, but are there a lot of foreign animals that make their way into the United States?
No, they usually end up coming in as like already slaughtered calves and things of that nature. A lot of those are going to the packing houses in the Midwest, and then they're cut up and sent here to, that's already gone through a pretty rigorous inspection service by the time they get here. West Virginia, we don't bring in a lot of, I don't know much foreign meat coming into West Virginia on the hoof. Most of it, from neighboring states, obviously. Some of them use our livestock markets and all. But we have traceability. We have animal IDs, so we can trace things back if there is something.
Secretary of Agriculture Kent Leonhardt, our guest here on the program. Kent, in regards to federal funding and some changes that are being made from Washington, D.C., and as they filter down into West Virginia, have they had effects on our farmers as of yet in any way?
Well, they haven't had an effect as of yet, but we know it's going to have an effect. The first phase of those programs, the one that's going through the food banks to buy local foods, and the farm-to-school ones that run through the Department of Education. The other ones run through Department of Ag to the food banks. Those funds are just about expended. Come May, that'll be done. Phase 2 was supposed to kick in, but Phase 2 is not going to kick in now. So what people don't realize, the way the federal budget works, and it's complicated, that programs that are authorized through like the Farm Bill, they're safe. But these were monies that were put in place during the Biden administration that did not have an authorization bill at the same time. So they became vulnerable for cuts. So the couple $1 million that we are not going to get now were dollars that would have been spent on local farms. Now, we have some agribusinesses, some farms that depended and are growing based on their relationship and contract with the schools or with the food banks to sell what they grow. So that's going to hurt those farmers. I've been advocating for years, and I haven't gotten any assistance out of the legislature yet for the West Virginia Grown program, because that program, we have it, but we just aren't robust as we could be. If we had some funding, I had some more planning coordinators on the ground, we would be helping our farmers find other markets. We do not want anybody in business hates to have a single customer. That single customer ends up in trouble. That business is out of business. And the same goes in agriculture. If you rely 100% on one program or another and that program goes away, then you're out of luck. So, and there was no follow-on dollars to this Phase 2 either. So what I want to do is continue to work with our agricultural businesses and our buyers out there to build these markets. And that's what my West Virginia Grown program is designed to do. And we've been very successful in many ways. If you look at the last National Ag Statistics, and they run every 5 years, we were up about $200 million in agricultural output in West Virginia from when I took office. So the program's working, and the things that we're doing are working. You know, we've tripled farmers markets in the state. Those are outlets for our farmers. And now we have to get the people to go out to the farmers markets and support them.
Are you guys currently working with any of these farmers that are not going to get the money from because the federal funds dried up on the school side and some of the food bank side? Are you guys currently working to help find them new markets? And if so, how are you doing that?
Yeah, well, we have planning coordinators out there, and we are helping them try to do new markets. Even things like we did that Winter Blues Market in Charleston, and next year we're hoping to do a Winter Blues Market in Morgantown, because once they make that connection, people will go back to the same farmers and buy their products over and over again. So we're continuing to do things like that in partnership with WVU Extension. We're also working with the food banks and to see if there could be some state funding for the food banks, because the food banks are feeling a pinch in food that they can serve to the pantries around the state with the loss of those funds. So we're working with the food banks to see if the state can step up. And of course, you know, there's that controversy: are we in a deficit or are we in a surplus in West Virginia in our budget? So that's all being sorted out at this time.
Depends on what day it is or who you talk to. I mean, our legislators do a good job, but they got a lot to figure out this year. That's for sure.
It's a difficult time.
Ken, I'm curious as to the lack of success in coordinating with the West Virginia legislature in regards to getting local farmers' foods in the schools and such. Was that something that was complicated by federal relationships, or does the legislature not see the value in those tie-ins?
Well, you know, I like to tell people, I get it. We're an energy state. So people focus more on energy revenue than they do agriculture. If agriculture was our number one industry, I think our legislature would focus more on it. I know they do in Georgia and Louisiana, where that's their number one output. But we're an energy state, so we tend to focus more on the energy side of things. And then we take for granted that we're eating from a safe and affordable and abundant food supply. Until something goes wrong, then the ag commissioner is the bad guy, of course.
Never to me,
you know,
Ken.
Well, Well, I was trained for this job when I was a communications officer in the Marine Corps. Nobody cared who the comm officer was as long as the guns were firing and the communications went. But if let a circuit go down, where's that communications? What the heck's he doing, you know? So I get it. I was trained 40 years ago for this.
You got the USMC background, dude. You can handle anything. But you know what, though?
Right.
Your point, though, whenever I ask, or anybody in our show asks a legislator about another issue and why they're focusing on that instead of this, they all give me the same answer. Well, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So, okay, we're an energy state, but we also have a rural state as well. And there's a lot of people who farm. So in the Eastern Panhandle, we were known for apple orchards and such. So it's no pun intended, but low-hanging fruit here. Just take the apples to the school.
I agree. And it boggles my mind sometimes why we can't get any further. I mean, but you know, the other problem is that we live on one-year budgets. And what people need to realize, I think if we spend a little bit more on agriculture and what we feed our kids in schools, of course, they're trying to do the least expensive meals in the schools, right, for that year. But if we spent a little bit more, had better foods, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, we'd end up with savings in healthcare costs.
Sure. Less obesity, right? Fewer
obesity.
Drugs.
I mean, I love this Make America Healthy Again movement. I think West Virginia is going to benefit from it. And I think our legislators are starting to take a little bit more of attention to it, like they've passed the bill on the food dyes and things of that nature. So I think the focus is starting to come. Again, these are things that have to build in, I guess, en masse, with everybody thinking along the same lines. What's the crisis du jour?
Sure. The governor did sign the food dye bill. I know we talked to Senator Jason Barrett, the finance chair, a lot about that bill. And we get the backlash from the food companies is that this is going to create empty store shelves in West Virginia and higher prices too. Do you buy that by banning a grouping of dyes that's going to affect the food supply in West Virginia?
Yeah, I do buy that. That's why I'm glad to see they put this, the start date out to 2028, because it sends a signal to Washington, and other states are going to do the same thing. So if all the states are doing it, then the manufacturers make that adjustment. If we said starting July 1, then they're absolutely right. The shelves would have been empty right away. There wouldn't have been enough time for other states to react and the national level react and the food manufacturers. So by pushing it out a couple of years, it sends that signal to Washington, to the food manufacturers, particularly if other states come on board, because no food manufacturer is going to change their formulation for just West Virginia. Our population is not big enough for them to make that change. You get a couple big states like California, which did it in schools, not for the general public like we did, or New York, then the manufacturer is going to start taking a little bit more notice. So I do buy the argument. That's why I'm glad it was put out a few years.
Delayed, yes. Are you watching anything else the legislature is doing this session, Kent?
Well, I'm also watching on a program that we support heavily, which is SNAP Stretch. That's basically the farmers markets use the SNAP Stretch dollars, and there's other grants and federal matching to multiply those dollars at the farmers markets. So if we get that funding, that's going to help our farmers as well for the losses that they've taken. It's not as big as the losses, but it still helps a little bit and builds the market. And then we get into our folks that are using the SNAP benefits, getting them healthier foods as well, and multiply the cost on that. So we're watching that, obviously, the budget we're watching, and we're just continuing to work to make sure that we have a safe and abundant food supply here in West Virginia.
Kent, that kind of dovetails into a thought on my mind. You were mentioning earlier the buyers, that our farmers have to have a way to reach out. Are most of the buyers in West Virginia individual people, say, through the farmers markets and so forth, or does a lot of it go through, say, wholesalers and so forth? And how do you attract more of those type of folks to, come in and buy up and then distribute the goods, products from West Virginia?
And I have about 40 seconds for your answer, Kent.
Okay, well, we do have some wholesale buyers buying the product. Obviously, we want to see more. But right now, most of it is the individual buyer and what the consumer is going to demand. So, again, if we continue to promote West Virginia grown, get those signs up in the stores, and the consumers start asking the grocery stores they want West Virginia grown products, then it's going to buy. It's got to be it's not all going to happen at once. It's got to go, the supply and demand will go up incrementally over time, and that's what we're seeing happen.
Kent, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate your availability on the show as always, sir.
Thank you much for having me. And everybody out there, go eat West Virginia grown.
Good advice, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Send you out with the Marine Corps theme into the top of the hour here